Hey beautiful people, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lakbadi Baju and I'm a lifestyle content creator based in Edmonton, Alberta. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell so you'll get an alert when a new video comes up. And of course, if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always joining me on my channel. I really appreciate you guys. So let's jump into today's video. Today we're going to be talking about something very interesting, and it is the art of active listening. So I'm not talking about, someone that listens to every detail, that if maybe, remember back in high school when our teachers will dictate our lessons to us and, we'll be listening and writing every single word down. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm not talking about, we saw you know what I'm talking about. So I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is the art of listening to a conversation and understanding the conversation, picking the specific pieces, what really matters. Because there's actually an art to it, and we're going to be diving into that today. So why do you think active listening is really important? So picture this. Maybe you're having date night with your significant other, and you guys are having a conversation and one party picks up their phone and scrolling through, Instagram with you. How do you think the other party will feel? You might not even be scrolling through your phone. The person might actually be talking and you might be reading that person and you might not actually be hearing anything. It actually happens a lot. That's because our minds, are very powerful. We're able to assimilate so many things at the same time. So sometimes you might feel like you are able to multitask, but there will always be one part that will be lacking, and it will most likely be you not listening to your significant other. So today, let's dive into the specifics on how to balance that, as an individual, to help you grow your relationships, nurture your friendships, and as a whole be an all-round great person to be with. Another scenario that I can very quickly think of is when you're on a call, especially in this day where you're able to work remotely and you're on a call and maybe you're not the one, facilitating the discussion, you're just listening in, and someone is speaking and the next thing you just hear someone say, "Oh, can you speak to that?" or "Do you have anything to add to that?" And your mind has wandered 10 million miles. I can relate to that because it happened to me, and it's not cool. It's not nice. So in order to avoid those types of situations that hurt the heart, you need to know how to balance listening to what really matters and also able to do the other things you want to do. So what exactly is active listening? Well, it's not just about hearing the words that someone is saying. It's really about truly understanding what they're saying, showing that you are engaged, understanding the message that is being passed across, and responding thoughtfully. So it's like when you upgrade from a flip phone to a smartphone, you're not just able to just make phone calls or send messages, you're able to do other things, as you can imagine. So I can share a little about my journey to active listening. A couple of you may know that I transitioned into tech. So what I studied in university has nothing to do with what I'm, doing right now in my career. So after graduating from university, if you ask me anything about any kind of drug, because I'm a trained pharmacist, I'll be able to answer. And then I transitioned into tech, talking about software development, talking about e-commerce. So, I knew about the basics of project management going into the job, but when it comes to understanding that domain, it took a while for me to understand, get used to the language and being able to have meaningful conversations. So when I would initially join those calls, I would listen in and I'll be like, okay, I don't understand what they're talking about here, but I will just keep listening. And so I will occasionally zone out because I didn't understand what they were saying. But eventually I got to the point where, with being actively involved in those conversations and asking questions, when they seem like they are dumb questions, but engaging in that over and over got me into the habit of knowing the kind of questions to ask, and responding thoughtfully, when I was supposed to. It was a learning process. It was a work in progress. It wasn't just something that happened overnight, but it is actually, this practice has actually helped me to excel in my career, as someone who transitioned from one career in an extreme to the other extreme. So now I'm about to share with you 5 key elements that have helped me to be a better active listener. And this has helped me in my career and in my relationships as a whole. So are you ready? Let's dive in. Number 1, give your full attention. So this might seem like, oh yeah, that's obviously expected, but it's actually hard to pay attention to things. I don't know if you can relate to what I'm saying. You might think that, by you looking at the person, you're hearing what the person is saying, but that's not really, it's not always typically the case. So obviously, you should pay attention to what the person is saying, make eye contact, or break the eye contact occasionally. So I'm not saying look at someone in a creepy manner, because some people, because they're trying to pay attention, they are staring at you and it's like they're looking into your soul, literally. That's how it feels. So of course, pay attention, look at the person, but break the eye contact so that the person doesn't feel uncomfortable, while trying to communicate with you. So next time you are involved in a conversation, think about these things. Think about it like, okay, I'm trying to pay attention to what this person is saying. Of course, try to listen to what the person is saying. And if you find yourself thinking about something else or wanting to pick your phone or look at the TV or, just doing anything, just give yourself a mental tap like, no, come back here, circle back. Number 2, show that you are listening. And how can you do this? By using verbal cues. So verbal cues like nodding, and also responding, like saying, yeah, like, oh, really, things like that. That shows that you are actually listening to what is being said and you're not just staring into space, So this is applicable, like, for example, picture yourself being on a remote call. I'm sharing this example, but this is what I can relate to, and this is how I've applied it. You're on a remote call and, someone is the one speaking and you are just only there to listen or maybe contribute in one way or the other. So while you're actively listening, if your camera is on, obviously you don't just stare into space or just, because a lot of people do this, like, this is not even, like, a lot of people do this where you ask them questions, and then they completely zoned out or they were doing something entirely different. I'm like, okay, say that again, and then the person will have to repeat that question. So obviously they weren't listening. So if you are listening, there's a way your facial countenance will look like, you nodding, saying okay, or like the facial expression already shows, and the person will feel lost and like, disengage, like, okay, they're not listening to me anyway, so I'll just keep talking. Show that you're listening. Number 3, provide feedback. So you can do this by summarizing or paraphrasing what has been said. So earlier on in my career, when people repeat things that, someone previously said, I usually used to like laugh at them, like, why are you repeating what this person, literally just said? But I realized that is actually a good practice because it shows that you are listening to what is being said, and for you to understand and for it to have like a lasting impression, that's when you paraphrase or you rephrase, and it has a lasting effect on you basically, and that actually shows that you're listening. So here is how it might sound like in a work setting. For example, maybe the person just gives an overview and the person was saying that I don't think I can accommodate this task into my schedule. So a way of, if I'm the one listening, a way of me affirming that I heard what it said, I can say something like, okay, so if I understand you correctly, Mr. A gave you this task to do in addition to what you're doing, and you're saying that you're not able to accommodate that into your current schedule. That's a question, and that's kind of affirming that, okay, this is what you said. Am I getting it correctly? So here's a practical tip. Imagine your kids returning from school, and you ask them how their day was. Because I do this a lot. I'm like, oh, how's your day? And then my son, Mr. Moy, is telling me, oh, this person did this, oh, my teacher did this, and I have zoned out. I have zoned out. But I have taken it upon myself to be an active listener and to be more involved in his conversations, because he's getting older, so having meaningful conversations with him matters to him. I know, I can tell. So yeah, that's what I've taken on on my own to be a better listener. So when he comes back and I ask him how's his day, he tells me everything, and it's so mumbled, like, oh, this happened, this, that. So I just pick out a few things. I'm like, okay, so are you for real? Oh, this really happened? Oh, wow. So what did you do? Continue asking, and you make him to keep bringing up more topics, and with you listening, there'll be always be things that come up. And maybe you can say, oh, his teacher really did good to me. I'm like, oh wow, so that means you did that test really good. Oh wow, awesome, that's wonderful. So things like that. Hope that makes sense. Number 4, defer judgment. I know this can be a bit difficult depending on kind of conversation you're having, but basically try to listen to the full context of the situation before you form an opinion in your mind. Be open-minded about what is being communicated. A very good example is if someone's actually trying to provide feedback to you, especially if it's like a negative feedback. And as the person is trying to communicate that across, you've drawn up your defense, you're ready to fight. You're ready to be like, no, I didn't do that. But calm down. So next time, if someone is trying to, give an opinion about something and you already have something you want to say, ready, waiting to fire it down, wait and let the person finish communicating what they want to say before you now like, okay, can I provide another perspective? Because it makes the other speaker uncomfortable, basically. Another perspective is when someone is trying to make a conversation, is trying to land, because some people have dyslexia. So sometimes, they're trying to communicate something across and they're finding it difficult to, more like put the words together, like pass across the information. So sometimes it might be a struggle and you are there trying to complete the sentence for them. That can be very, very annoying, to that individual. So next time you see yourself trying to complete the sentence for someone or trying to butt into a conversation when the person hasn't even landed yet, just mentally tap yourself and like, calm down. Or you can take a deep breath and be like, okay, we're almost there. And let the person finish before you now, give your own perspective to the situation. Capiche? Number 5, give a response that is appropriate. So when a person has communicated their thoughts, their views, or they're asking a question, of course there should always be vice versa, like a response. So what type of response are you going to give? So depending on the situation, you should always strive for great communication. So sometimes someone might say something that might annoy you or might not necessarily be the case, and if you're striving for peace and you are a great communicator, then obviously that situation, that conversation should end on a positive note, right? So of course I've said don't be defensive or don't jump into conclusions. So always think about the response you want to provide. Will that response bring out a positive outlook to the situation, or is it just going to result in maybe silence or unresolved issues? So sometimes a response is needed. Sometimes the response you really want to give might not necessarily be what will solve the situation. So you might just be like, okay, well, I apologize that if maybe someone said something like, oh, you made me feel very uncomfortable on this call. I'd rather you don't do that. Something like that. And you're like, and maybe that was not your intention. And it can escalate into something else, but you can come from your own perspective, I'm like, no, I wasn't trying to do that. This was actually the reason why I responded this way, and then it can just escalate. So instead, you might want to take this approach like, oh, I didn't know that situation made you feel this way. I apologize for that. And that's something I'll bear in mind for next time. It's not because, there couldn't have been another response, but if you're striving for peace and you're trying to be a good communicator, and trying to not raise any conflict, then that might be the approach you want to take. So it really depends on you, because if you are trying to perfect your communication, you should always strive for peace. You should always strive for a positive outlook on things, making the environment smooth. And I would say most of these traits are skills that I've learned based on the career where I am currently, because as a facilitator, as someone who coordinates, who is the one communicating, who is trying to be like the middleman between business and technology. So most times you will want to have those skills to excel at what you're doing. So about active listening, it's not about being polite or being quiet or being timid or anything like that. It's really about providing value, making people feel heard, understood, creating an engaging, environment and overall value, because at the end of the day, most of our relationships, our conversations spark from a need, a want. So what is the outcome? What are you hoping to achieve from that conversation? The value is really important. So once you tie the value to, whatever it is, then you will definitely want a positive outcome, from that situation. And so, as I said, I know that most of the examples I gave are from a career perspective, but you can always, use any of these skills in your personal relationships, even with people you don't know. Sometimes you're at the grocery store and you're purchasing something, and the person at the till, the payment till, is asking you, "Oh, what are your plans for today?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to go home and take a nap." And maybe they're trying to have a conversation because they're probably having a bad day. Just the kind of response you give can actually make or even make their day worse, or actually make them feel better. So if you look at it from that perspective, then you know that being a good communicator overall is actually a very important skill in our everyday lives, in our relationship building, in our interactions with people overall as a whole. And finally, remember that being a great listener starts with actually listening. So always have an open mind, open your ears, open your mind, be ready to listen, be ready to hear another perspective, be ready to have a positive outcome in that situation. And yeah, that's the end of this video, guys. So if you found this video really useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about all that I've shared today, and if you're going to be taking any of these points, into practice. But yeah, that's the end of this video, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Okay.